I want to talk about something which actually ties in with the series that I'm doing about loving your Muslim neighbours, getting to know and to love your Muslim neighbours. And so I'm going to include this walk and talk in that series. But it also has other sort of wider impact. We'll see how it sort of comes back to that a bit later on. But something that I touched on about 2 years ago on the blog was that just outside of Birmingham, not far from the motorway here, so very close to here, there's been this project to build something called the Eternal Wall of Prayer, which sounds sort of a bit like something from North Korea and something from the book 1984, doesn't it? But it's nothing to do with that. But basically, some people have decided that what we really need near the M6 is a massive, big monument to provide a focus and to celebrate where people have had answers to prayer. And this thing is going to cost £40 million. Well, the news this week has been that in really exciting news for those people, they are now in a position to start building this monument, this eternal wall of answered prayer. I've seen some of that in the news. My friend Steve Neal, if you ever get a moment, look up his blog. It's called Building Jerusalem. He's written something today about that. And the question he has asked is, what would you do if you had £40 million to spend? And that's where I wanted to come in, because building this monument is such a waste of money. It is something just so outside of really what the Bible encourages us as Christians to be doing. And really, this is, to use biblical language, to many of us, I would describe this as an abomination that causes desolation. It is horrific. Steve, by the way, in his article, he takes us back well over 100 years to when Liverpool became a city, and with that there was the possibility of a cathedral being built. And I think Steve is originally sort of from the sort of Liverpool area, so that's of interest to him. And the first bishop at the time was a guy called J.C. Ryle. That you may not have heard of him. He was actually a fantastic preacher. There are lots of books of collections of his sermons and sort of commentaries by him that you can get today. He wrote a book on holiness. A really significant character in evangelical history. And it's a real shame that J.C. Ryle, that what he modelled in terms of being a bishop, has not been followed by many bishops since. Because there's a man who loved God's word, loved the gospel, loved people, and had a concern actually for the poor of the city of Liverpool as well. And a lot of his thinking about how to preach comes from that kind of concern, not to be there for the intellectuals, but to be there for ordinary people. Well, anyway, J.C. Ryle argues strongly against building a new cathedral in Liverpool. because of the poverty in the area. There was no need for this. It would be possible to do something, I guess, like cities like Bradford did, where Bradford basically took on one of the existing parish churches and a larger parish church in the city centre. I've got a feeling Birmingham might be similar, and there was different times there's been extensions to it, but essentially just an ordinary church but building. But with extended use, the change of name, that kind of thing. But no, Liverpool decided that they were going to have this new cathedral, and there's a big thing. There is a big, large, huge thing in Liverpool about having everything has to be the biggest, of course, doesn't it? And so, if you go to Liverpool today, people will tell you that. You will get the thing that you'll hear is that this is the largest cathedral, largest sort of church building in the country. I think that's measured something like cubic space, which is not how anyone measures anything, is it? But it's actually a really ugly monstrosity. By the way, at a similar sort of time, there were rival plans to build a Roman Catholic cathedral. They even sold cigarettes for those money for that. That was meant to be huge. It was meant to rival St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. In the end, the funds didn't come through. It didn't happen. The wars affected that, and the result is a much smaller, very interesting, sort of very modernist kind of affair. But Steve's point was that the cathedral question in Liverpool gives us a way of thinking about this monstrosity here. I think actually that there is coming this abomination of a eternal wall or answer prayer kind of thing, although at least the cathedral was meant to have the purpose of being a place for Christians to meet to worship. This doesn't even have that going for it. But anyway, I wanted to come back to the what would you do with £40 million? And here's my very simple answer. I would find 40 cities and give them £1 million each, or the city that give the Church of Christians £1 million in each of those cities. So I wouldn't be looking for all £40 million to come to Birmingham. And if we got £1 million here in Birmingham, that is probably going to give us 5 gospel workers, 5 people to go and share the good news about Jesus, with an income, a salary, for the next 5 years. Because what we really need is people to come and share the good news. And the big challenges are twofold. One, having the resources to say that we will be able to support people doing this. 2, and this is where I really want to get into in this video, is we do need the people. And that's not an easy ask. I don't think it's really in our conscience, it's not really in our psyche to be thinking in terms of we want to get people into our cities, into our urban context, to share the good news about Jesus. We've been in such a maintenance mode as a church, and I've talked often before about how the traditional sort of pipeline for Christian ministry is really about um, people at university following up doing a ministry training scheme with a large church, going to a theological college, and then getting assistant pastorships or curates or curacies in large churches. Again, and what I keep coming back to is that we need people to simply move into communities, to live amongst people, to open up their homes to their neighbours, and to share the good news. And what I keep saying is, we would very happily welcome people here into Birmingham and into the Black Country to do that. We would love to have you come and be here and provide training. Now, we're not going to offer you qualifications, degrees and that kind of thing. Don't come to us for a certificate. But the opportunity to get to know how to serve people with God's word and how to plant and lead, how to be robust in your theology, how to protect and guard from false teaching. Those are the kinds of things we can work with you on. What that means is that you could come here to North Birmingham, or like I say, out into the Black Country, and you could spend a couple of years living here, doing some training, joining an existing local church to worship, but without any ministry pressure there. Instead, simply focusing on getting to know people in your neighbourhood, getting to share the good news. And what that would mean is that if you get to the end of those 2 years, the worst case scenario is you've spent 2 years here in Birmingham, you've got to know some people, there's a community where people have had contact with a Christian, a loving, caring Christian, and they've heard the good news about Jesus. The best case scenario is we see a church planted, and that might be a house church that replicates so that it multiplies into more house churches, or it could be a church that starts to meet in a building somewhere, rents some rooms, gets some of that £40 million was sitting around somewhere to buy and build. How do they do it? But the point is then that there's all sorts of possibilities in between. Oh, by the way, as well as people getting to know you and you getting to know them, you've had the opportunity to train, you've had some experience, that kind of thing that you can take with you to whatever comes next. But it could be that the result is simply that a couple of people become Christians and they join an existing local church. It could be that you start to grow a small group, still part of another church. So there's lots that can be happening for the gospel, so that there is fruit there. Now, what does this have to do with the series that I'm doing on getting to know and love your Muslim neighbours? Well, the answer is this. Here in Birmingham, we have a large population of people from Muslim backgrounds. So one of the other big things that is sort of on my mind today, I'm doing this video on the 6th of November 2025, and not far from here, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is the Aston Villa football ground, and it's tonight that Maccabi Tel Aviv are playing Aston Villa, and there's a lot of tension because even though Aston Villa have restricted the game on advice, on police advice, so there won't be any Tel Aviv fans coming, we're still being told that it's going to be protests. There's still rumours of both people using this as an opportunity to protest against the Israeli team and against Israel, possibility of counter demonstrations and the far right and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of fear in a community, and that's a community very much on my doorstep. So one area I would love to see Christians move into, Christians start to think about how do we go about planting churches, is into that top end of Aston and that bit of Perry Bar, near to the Perry Bar train station, that kind of area. And I would make that my starting point. If I was to ask for someone to come to one place, that would be it. There are other places I'd like to see people as well. Handsworth in the news because of Robert Jenrick, the Conservative spokesperson on justice. My old stomping ground of Smethwick. We've got people into the east of the city, into Spartlock and those kinds of areas. But my starting point is, what about coming to Aston? Not far from where that eternal wall of answered prayers is going to be built. If you come, you will probably see it on the way as it's being built. And that would be much more of an answered prayer for me than some big white elephant monument. So why not get in touch? You go to faithroot.com, find the contact page. You'll also find lots of information there about church planting and training in urban contexts, particularly in the West Midlands. I would love to hear from you.